This is Hacking the Afterlife podcast with Jennifer Schaefer. Jennifer!
Hi, Richard.
It has been so long.
I know. I keep leaving.
But, people ask for your help. Let's put it that way. So that's wonderful.
Oh,
I love that that's the case.
you.
And by the way, can I say your hat really rocks?
Thank you. I happen to love it too. I appreciate that.
It's a little bit like a detective / spiritual person hat, which is you. That's the hat you wear.
It's the hat I wear. I know.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I've had some adventures, as you can imagine. I'm sure you've had some adventures.
Talk to me about yesterday.
Well, yesterday I had the great fortune to talk about my good friend Charles Grodin, this great film, Charles Grodin, who we all love. This filmmaker, James Friedman, has been tasked to make a film, a documentary. I mean, it was his idea. But, there's a flip side element to it, other than the fact that we've spoken to Chuck a few times. But the really cool flip side element that I just wanted to point out is that, because I asked him, have you ever seen Charles on Broadway? Because Chuck had these 3 major careers: movies, Broadway, and then television. And he said that when he was 12 years old, he went to see Charles in a Broadway show called Same Time Next Year. And he said, it changed my life. Seeing that play completely changed who he was. And now here we were sitting in the backyard of Harper Simon and Paul Simon's son, who was a member of the Fun Patrol, like me and Chuck and Jack Warden. Anyway, it was just a bookend for this guy. Here he was all these years later, 30, 40 years later, and we're talking about this person who, how do you crystallize a person when you're talking about him? You try to narrow it down. You go to the heart of who they are. And in my case, empath is the word that came to mind, because he was somebody who he listened to other people with empathy. He listened with compassion. He was a guy who helped people get out of prison. I mean, he did all these things in his life. I mean, it's a shame he's not on the planet, but as we know,
he still says he is.
As you know, we consider it a delight. Now, I just met with somebody in Manhattan Beach, your hometown.
I know. I can't believe. So I am here. Some of you guys know who this person is. It's Cindy Kaza. She's actually she's one of my best friends, and she is an amazing medium. She was on the Holzer Files. She has shows coming up all the time. She works for Discovery Channel as a medium. But we're here to see her brother, and we're having so much fun. So they went out and ran some errands. I'm like, let's just hop on while we can.
And I have gotten some emails from not cranky fans, but people who have missed your voice. Let's put it that way. Missed your insight into issues that are, that stress people out about losing a loved one. And
that is happening more than you could possibly imagine right now.
It really does seem to be. And of course, people email as soon as a celebrity passes away, they'll ask, is he on the list? So let's turn this over to our friend Luana. Luana came up today. I just want to tell you today, while I was doing this interview with this translator, she translates.
Can I show you something real fast?
Yeah, sure.
So I have gone green, everybody.
Oh, look at that. So Jennifer's no longer killing trees with.
Well, good news and bad news. Good news is I've given literally documented close to 3,000 readings so far, at least 3,000 readings. And I started using a paper for each, because I didn't want when I was new 10, 12 years ago, when I was writing, I would use like a paper each, because I didn't want the energy from somebody to get on the paper. But then I started folding it down. I'm like, fuck that. Sorry. Now it's
pardon me. Excuse me.
And so I'm like, I can't stand the fact that I'm wasting trees. And then I'd fold it over and fold it over. And then, finally, you could do this where the iPad isn't leaked, and I have the iPad Pro, the brand new one, and you can write, and then it just goes away. And it's just so great. It's so great.
Well, on behalf of all the trees on the planet who want us to plant a
excited.
trillion of them,
And
we
it's
thank
still,
you,
it's
Jennifer.
still my clipboard.
Okay, very good. And so, as she points out, there's not much on there. It's
No,
not that
there's
we have,
Richard Martini, Fun Patrol, and now Luana.
and now literally, I mean, it's like, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, she texted me and said, can we do a podcast now? I'm like, okay, great. So I was in Manhattan Beach interviewing somebody who's a translator who does my books into Spanish. She's Argentinian.
And love that.
And she's a huge fan of Jennifer's, of course.
Oh,
But it's interesting to talk to somebody who has read so much of my work, but then to have this experience. So what's unusual is that her close friend had passed away. And
why
I
don't we
just,
do something? Just
well,
get.
sure. Well, here's the thing, because I did what I do, which is I asked them.
Okay, so you did it, Mr.
So I
Not-
did that, yeah. And I asked him, well, I just asked him to, I asked her to remember a dream that she had, a vivid dream after he passed away. And I asked him if she could access that dream. She did. And then we walked with him in the dream. And then we went through all of the questions she had. But then I said, let's ask him, is it important for her to visit her counsel? And I didn't know. And he said, yes. So the next thing I know, we're up there chatting with her counsel or council members. They're talking about her journey. These are not terms or ideas that she's that aware of in her own life, because I was focusing on new information. But the most interesting character that appeared, and I wonder if Luana would mind putting
Is he like a future character, an alien or some sort?
close to that. I'm sitting in front of that. I'm sitting in front of that character.
Oh, I love it. It's funny because I thought you mentioned redhead earlier, but you didn't.
No.
You mentioned something else, and I was looking at the hair behind
Well,
you.
if you can see,
There.
that's a baby angel who's
Mhm.
playing the guitar. And so this is what she saw. Now, because I asked her, have you ever seen an angel before? She said no. But here, this was what you would consider a cherub, like a 5-year-old angel with wings. And at some point we started talking about her journey, but I was asking very specific questions to the angel about their journey. Have you ever incarnated? No.
Right.
But for the first time I heard it's something I might do in the future because I like to learn. Well, that was interesting.
Mhm.
But and then I jumped in with a question: Have you ever heard of Luana? Without any last name or context. And this woman, without missing a beat, said, "Who hasn't heard of Luana?" Like everyone on the flip side is either friends with her, knows her, or is aware of our work. Because then I said, "So you're aware of our work?" She said, "We all are. We're aware of your work." Not only through Lillian, this translator, because of course she has guides and teachers and they're all aware of what she's doing, but it's also other people who are talking about this, making it easier for people to communicate.
Right.
So
right.
Lou,
So my dad just keeps showing up, which just real fast, because you were saying that she was Argentinian. My dad went on his mission to Argentina.
Oh, I didn't know.
And he speaks fluent Spanish. He taught I think middle school at one point in high school, kids that had Spanish as their first language. He taught them English because those were the kids that were likely, if he didn't get them to understand it, then they would most likely drop out because it was too hard. Anyway, he pops in while you were talking about
Very
her.
good. Hi, Jim. Of course, Jim's always welcome. We love talking to your dad.
Yeah. So when you see me go like this, I can see him behind me. That's why I'm like, oh, my dad. I love that.
I was quoting him this morning, actually.
I was quoting him this afternoon.
Well, was it about grief or what was the quote?
It was about, someone asked me like, well, your dad was Mormon. Like, how did that happen? Like, how did this work out? And eventually, when he had his own path, I expressed how he had a heart attack, how I told him a month prior, his arm hurt. And he's like, my arm is fine. And then a month later, he had a heart attack. And he told me, he goes, Jennifer, I knew what you meant. He goes, but I didn't want to believe it. Fast forward, that's when he said, it's not your job to make anybody believe in anything. He goes, leave that up to us. He goes, Jennifer, it's been a wonderful way to learn about what you do and how things happen. He goes, because when he went with my mother to Hawaii, everything was 7 1s, and that's our number.
Right.
Everything.
And your birthday.
Dinner bell, birthday, like everything was 71. And he goes, Jennifer, that's just almost impossible with how many times that happened to us. And he goes, and that was after I came to you and told you about how I knew that you meant it was a heart attack, and then I had a heart attack. And so he goes, don't take that away from people. Let them figure it. He goes, you can't take away their belief systems or make them believe in this. You can't make them fit this in their life. He goes, leave that up to them.
Sure. They need to make that journey on their own.
He goes, give them the right to, he goes, because that's the exciting part. Don't worry about it. They'll have to figure it out eventually.
Exactly. We all will figure it out eventually. And kind of what we do this podcast for is to show people that they can figure it out today. They can access this information. I got an email today from somebody on Quora who was raving about doing a session with you and wanted to thank me personally for introducing them to you. He had done a session with you and Kimberly Babcock, somebody else who appears in the film Hacking the Afterlife. Also very talented, but this guy, he spoke to, I think it was his mom, or it might have been his dad that he really wanted to connect with. And so then he said, so I really felt like I connected with him, but I'm not sure. So I was wondering if maybe you might do a session with me. And I said, hang on a second. You had 2 experts help you actually access this person, and now you want a third opinion? Just speak directly to the loved one on the flip side. That's the point.
Right. That is and
anyway.
they're already talking to you as it is. It's just that it's challenging. Again, for the listeners that have been listening to us, or if this is your first time, and feel free to say goodbye.
And your last, yeah, exactly.
And your last. You guys have been listening to us. You guys know that, like, we're teaching everyone to tap in to, like, I wish that I was out of a job, because if I was out of a job, then the world would look so differently, you know.
Meaning that you wouldn't have to, everybody could access their loved ones.
And eventually, I hope eventually, you know, everybody.
Well, let's go on record. Let's predict that.
It's
that eventually everyone will be able to act just the same way that Jennifer does. And with this idea that you can ask them questions and get answers. Also in this session with this woman, somebody came through like an avatar. And I said, you know, is that okay that I tell people you're always available and always accessible? And he said, well, I am. So why wouldn't you say that? Truth sets people free on both sides of the veil.
Oh,
so, go ahead.
Sorry. And I also want to talk about the fact that the tsunami that hit us a couple of weeks ago, I believe that it created some type of portal, because everyone has had so many things happening. Like, the quickening is.
Oh, you mean the earthquake? Not so, because the tsunami was not so hot.
Right. But when the tsunami, the
earthquake. The explosion of the
explosion, I think personally rocked our energy. I had to have rocked the energy field. That being said, things have been really crazy for a lot of people recently. Chalk it up to Mercury retrograde, chalk it up to Venus in retrograde, chalk it up to a bunch of things. But my point is, the other side is right here. There is no separation whatsoever. But I have found that people are like, it's not that jump anymore that people used to get years ago.
Right.
Okay. So for listeners, it's not that jump. You're going to hear it. It's going to be like the right next door. Like, it's going to come in so, like,
abruptly
or easily. You're going to discount it like I do, which is ridiculous. Steve Jobs always pops in when it happens. So trust it. Trust that you're getting the right information. And by the way, choose your thoughts wisely. So
in other words, something happens to you that seems to be super normal or paranormal. Right. And instead of judging it as a negative thing or something to be based in fear, allow that it's possible that someone who loves you is really knocking on your door to see if they can connect to you. That's the idea of allowing your thoughts to allow that it's possible, but focus it in a positive way. Someone still loves me. Someone still wants to connect with me. That's Absolutely. That idea. Well, speaking of love and speaking of Luana, Lou, we've we've abandoned you. We left you behind. I'm sure your clipboard is huge,
She's
but-
been so busy.
but we can, we're good at this, so we can rock and roll. You want to pull somebody into the list, we can just nail them one after the other, so to speak. Who do you want to bring forth, Lou? Or do you want to talk about process? That's equally as
Well,
interesting.
I didn't, oh, she's saying I didn't finish the process. Okay, thank you. The buzzing in the ears is a big thing too.
Oh,
So I have had spirit like on a couple days ago. I had a very long day. I had a very long day with clients. And before my clients hit, I kept on getting that buzz where I call it it's usually with spirits that don't have boundaries, which the spirit showed me later on who did that to me, like and why they did it to me, which is very interesting.
is it like a ringing in the ear or
It's a strong, like piercing noise, and then
Oh,
it
wow.
goes away. But there is a ringing in the ear, and that's also, and you're hearing it more and more during the day. I used to only hear it at night, but now I'm hearing it more during the day. And I know that's because of how the veil is so thin, how they're just right there.
Yeah.
And so- okay, hold on. Oh. Oh, okay, thank you. She says, tell them it's us calling you.
like the phone ringing,
That's pretty funny. I would have never thought of that. Yeah.
but like a cell phone call?
They're
We've
calling
seen it. We've seen it on the podcast, and I've seen it in person where Jennifer will suddenly stop and go like, "What? Do you hear that?"
Yeah,
and of course,
I usually say somebody bum rushed me, like somebody has no boundaries,
right, as
but-
opposed to asking them to come forward, and as Luana's done so well, putting them in a chair so we can sort of address them. But that idea of listening, paying attention to those things. Go ahead.
And then she says, open your heart and connect. Open your heart and connect.
Key
You might-
sentence there.
right.
Opening the heart. So what does that mean?
It means
Compassion?
that she's showing me how I'm just like, I judge it and I don't answer the phone call. So unless I'm working, I don't answer the phone call. And she says, well, that's not good. She goes, for the listeners, they're not working. They're not doing this for a job. We can just erase that. The point is, you should center yourself, however it works, and just whatever picture pops into your head or whatever feeling you get of a person, and it's usually a loved one. The biggest thing is nobody bad is coming in to try to give you information.
Harass you.
That's the biggest confusion that people get. Okay, hold on. Thank you. She says everyone is entitled to get a phone call. Nobody's exempt.
There's that thing in court, like you get arrested and you're like, I know I get a phone call. Well,
Right.
that's what Lou is saying. People on the flip side, they get to call you.
And she's showing me again myself on Sunday. My daughter had an event that was, okay, basketball season, really quick, basketball season got shortened. Thursday, we found out that Sunday, the day that Freddie was leaving to go see Jack, that Blakey has her last basketball game at Maricosta High School. So it's the last time that she's going to dance at the high school, and it's at 5:00. Well, I'm slammed on Sundays. And so for the first time, I don't do this very often. I'm like, Spirit, make it happen. I can't miss her last dance. I'm getting choked up thinking about it. I'm not handling this very well.
I hear it.
And
And
they made it work.
that's great.
The person that wanted to come see me, and then I'm sorry she got COVID, but I can't wait to see her when she gets over it. So everything got moved.
Everything got moved.
Two of
All
my-
right. So audience,
Yeah.
can I just point out that what Jennifer just said was that if people are getting COVID, it's because somebody else is like interrupting their schedule. I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm kidding. No. Both Jennifer and I've had it, so we know. It's,
Yeah, but I asked for it the night before because I'm like, you guys have to make this happen for me. I promise you I'll get
So that's about process, and it's about what Luana's saying.
we forget to ask for help.
We forget to ask for help,
Right.
and we don't, because it's hard for us to imagine asking a deity or asking somebody we don't know or some photograph on a wall. If you know somebody on the flip side, Simply put, ask them for help. And it could
And
be
if-
say, help
and
my
if-
guide.
And if you don't, ask the angels and whatever you believe
Or your avatar, whatever you believe. Absolutely.
in.
Absolutely.
Ask. They will help.
Very good. Okay, Lou, is that what you wanted to talk about today? Or do you have anybody on your list that wants to come through?
She's laughing. She goes, yes. Hold on. Okay. All right, hold on. Oh, he just told me I was getting much better at saying hello versus who died, who's in trouble. Like, oh, that's the last thing they want to say.
About process.
When a loved one does show up, do not automatically think you've done something wrong, because that pushes them away. Or that you feel guilty about something, like maybe not being at the funeral because of COVID, whatever it is. Say hello, because then they'll be able to talk to you. Because it's taken me 5 years now to know that my dad's coming to me just to say hi or to help.
That's okay. That's okay to do that. You can just say hello.
Versus me freaking out, thinking that something's wrong with my extended family. And sometimes that might be the case, but it's not. They just want you to know that they're around. Is that the cat?
That is the cat playing the piano. That's our cat agreeing with you. I just want to add that D flat for emphasis. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Is that true, Jim?
Yes.
Okay.
All I wanted to say. And he said to me, because he showed up again, and I'm like, I knew that I didn't feel anything bad, but that was the whole thing that he wanted me to explain. I said, hi, Dad. And I'm like, he goes, yeah. He goes, and now, he goes, congratulations. You actually now are saying hello versus going off. And then he showed me what happened.
Well, and also that thing of people have dreams, and we've talked about it, where somebody shows up in a dream that's passed away, and you're having this great moment with them, and then your brain goes, oh, wait a minute, you don't exist anymore, you died, and then they sort of disappear. And it's not like you push them away, it's just that your belief system has forced the filters to come back into place so that you're not open to continuing the conversation. So hello is a wonderful thing to start. Hello with, and if they start to disappear, just go back to the hello, just sort of dial it back.
I miss you.
Yeah. Or what are you doing? Who are you hanging out with? Who greeted you on the other side?
Love that. I always know my clients that come from you, because they're like, who greeted them on the other side? Because that is the line that you have coined for sure. No other person I know of.
Well, to me, it's a question that I couldn't possibly know, and the medium couldn't possibly know, but only the person on the flip side could possibly know. And of course, even when they get the answer, people go, oh, yeah, that would be likely. It would be his mother. But then, because they're parsing, they're trying to descramble it. Anyways, back to you, Lou. I'm just going to throw it right back to you. Anybody on your list?
They want to talk about dreams. So dreams have been very crazy for a lot of people. And I do believe that's because of the energy. So people are having these wackadoodle dreams. So remember, I'm going to let her tell me and make sure that I got it right again. Hold on. Oh, it's about what you said. Thank the people inside your dream. I do this almost every morning, and it's the best thing you could do. I always say, thank you. Thank you for, being a part of, thank you for being a part of, part of my day.
Well, just to give context, that idea that when you're having a dream, it appears, and just from an experience that I had, it appears that the people who are in the dream playing the role, good guy, bad guy, whatever it is, are actors.
We put faces to.
But they've also agreed to participate in the dream and play the role and so when you get to the end of the dream, instead of just waking up and going, well, that was weird. In fact, I had a dream my father was talking to me the other day. And at the end of the dream, I haven't seen you, so I haven't told you this. So at the end of it, we're having this conversation. I forget what it was about, architecture, other stuff. And at the end of the dream, I remembered our thing and your thing saying, thank him. And I looked at him, I said, Dad, thanks for coming to my dream. And he took my face in his hands and he said, you're doing good work.
Oh, you are, Richard.
but you know, it's the way he would talk. It was his vernacular, you know, to talk about somebody's work. Like you're drawing, you're an artist, you're doing good work. That's good drawing. He would say that's good work. So it's just a wonderful thing to hear. And it was only because I took the time at the end of the dream to go, you know, thanks for being in my dream. So
Yeah, and if it's things that are upsetting, say thank you actors for being part of my dream that my subconscious is an asshole.
it's gotten through, that I've survived.
Right. I got to tell you something that's pretty funny. So I haven't had a sip of wine, which you know is very challenging for me, for about 5 days. 5 days, because it's easy when I'm with Cindy. I call her now my sober companion. I've just decided, I'm like, I can't believe how great it is, by the way. But it's so funny. My dream last night, I had a bunch of people in my dream that were drinking or whatever, and I wasn't drinking. I remember feeling proud of myself that I wasn't drinking. It was like a
In your dream.
in my dream. It was hilarious.
That's hilarious.
And I had something that was in there that was a little bit off. And I'm like, you don't have to worry about it. I'm not drinking. These were all the thoughts that were in my head. I'm not going to respond to that. Like, it was just so funny.
Wow.
And I'm like, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. But if it's wonky, you know, that yucky feeling that you get, you know, that kind of lingers throughout the day, the best way to cut that off is by saying, thank you, guys. Please don't try to do that again. Or
yes, I prefer it if we don't go down this path again.
Right.
You
And
know.
that works. It works. It's the best thing ever.
You know, it's a little bit like lucid dreaming. And I know some years ago, I sort of read about it and to think about it because, you know, Tibetan monks and quite a few Buddhists and Buddhists, they sort of they learn how to meditate so that they can be awake while they're dreaming. It's identical because once you're sort of aware, and usually it happens at the end of a dream, where you start to realize you're coming back to consciousness, the dial is tuning back into the channel that you were in. But before the channel ends, you can just turn back to the channel and say, hey, you know, thanks, guys. Thanks, cast and crew who brought this production together today.
Right.
And it allows you to see, because if there's a reaction, you see, if you turned and did that and there was no reaction, you could argue, well, it's a dream. But when they stop and go, oh, you're welcome, or, you know, you're doing good work, or whatever it is.
It's pretty amazing. I'm happy that she mentioned that. I just think we need to, I know that, you know, our audience has heard this before, but in case you're new, these are the nuggets that will help you throughout this crazy energy. And again, back to like, be careful what you put your thoughts towards, because the manifestation is like that. So if you don't care about time is certainly not going to care about you. Like, remember when we tried to do it like a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, that's funny.
I didn't get to my office on time. When I got to my office, because I didn't care about it enough that morning, apparently there was a trash truck in front of it. There was a car parked in my spot, and the Wi-Fi.
We were here ready to go at the podcast, Jennifer and I.
I was freaking out.
And your client showed up, I think, about a half an hour early, and it was just like, okay, this
showed
is
up
not
a half
happening.
hour early, and then I was trying to get on Wi-Fi. I didn't realize that the client was actually in the office. So I'm like, he's like, I'm here, and I thought he was on. It just was one of those days, and I'm like, wow, I really didn't care about time enough. And then
Mercury retrograde, all that stuff.
I'm going to switch it. And I cared about time, and I was on time for absolutely everything there was on Tuesday.
That's
but
cool.
I think, and then like another time, I was just about ready to go to bed. I'm like, thank goodness I don't have to worry about anybody. Then my son called the minute after I said that. And I'm like,
well, let's ask Lou about that. Somebody was talking about that with me today, where they were asking about, you know, the essence of how they manipulate things over there because of time, slowing their frequency down in order to communicate with us. But at the same, and if they aren't, and this is what actually the angel was saying, that in order to help people, this person was saying they slow their energy way down. They said by 33%, because I asked, and they slow it down to communicate with people. And even then, and they're talking to their higher selves, even then, because they're not believing that they're talking to somebody who's helping them, they don't get through. So even then, on the flip side, people can resist what's in front of them. And so I said, well, then what do you do? And then this person said, well, then we try to manipulate others around them, whether it's to put a dream in their mind, whether it's to, you know, make sure that the nail hits the tire at the right place so that they could the car stops so that they can focus on something else. So the idea that things that seem random, that seem chaotic, may actually have been orchestrated by your higher self or others to help you.
Absolutely. In fact, the best way to do this is become the observer. Become the observer of things that you would normally respond to. Feel it and allow it to leave. Because, like I said, my company is called One Beautiful Chaos. Chaos is a curator for change. The only way they can get to you, the best way, is if you get hit in the head with something. Or if
sure.
And it will happen, but it's not bad. If, like, for instance, a lot of people are going through breakups or divorces. I have yet to see someone that has found somebody worse than where they were. They are always introduced to someone they should be with.
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Always. And they might have to go through a couple until they get there, but I promise you, I have yet, out of the 12 years that I've been doing this, everyone finds someone even better.
Well, let's ask Lou about that, because I was saying this today, that we have a tendency to think of our arc of our story as the person we are, but we don't think of the arc of our story as the many people we've been. So that if you were a person in the Renaissance who was a certain kind of person, and now you're a person, and that reflection, high five, that reflection, exactly. That reflection has changed. So Lou, are people planning, do events happen and occur here that affect us lifetimes in the future?
Backwards and forwards, she says.
Backwards and forwards. Well, by backwards, you mean by realizing
we're the future for other things that have happened.
But also that idea that when you go backwards, when you go back in time and examine what happened, that changes what happened, because you see it not as trauma, but as a lesson or as learning. And if you then let go of trauma because of a previous lifetime, this awful thing happened to me, you realize, oh, this was an orchestrated lesson that I helped somebody else. And now here I am 5 lifetimes later, realizing, oh, that was about learning how to forgive, how to give unconditional love. That's how you can go backwards and forwards within an educational concept.
Part of one of the main questions people ever ask me is, what is my purpose? And your purpose is through many lifetimes. It's not just here, but it's every lifetime you've ever been in that's affecting you here as well. Like it's a much longer conversation than just saying, well, your purpose is to be with your kids, which
like a university, like if you're going to become a doctor or a surgeon.
Your purpose changes. The purpose of you is to remain who you are in integrity.
Well, but also, let's just say from that idea. So let's say you wanted to become a surgeon. Each class that you take is about getting to that goal. And sometimes you have setbacks within the class where you don't like the teacher, or you don't like what's happening, and you feel like you've fallen off the ledge. And now the next class, you come back and you found a different teacher, and it's a different outcome. And eventually you graduate from the university. So that your purpose might be to help others.
Right.
And you can't see it.
And a lot of people that have thought about death growing up, their purpose is to be working with the other side, whether it's to be a physician or a doctor or,
fascinating.
There's a lot of doctors that are committing suicide in their field. And that was before COVID, because they think of death so much and they see it so much.
Well, Lou, let's ask Lou. Come on, we've got somebody here who can help us with this. How can we help people?
I'm sure she's giving me the thoughts to say.
So how can we help people like that who are considering leaving their journey early? How can we help people?
Okay. The first thing that came to me, she's still saying, is love.
Love. That's the key.
Love. That's just a one-worded answer.
It's fascinating, because when I was talking to this guardian angel, this little cherub, and I said, so what do you do when they won't listen to you up there, your higher self? And what do they do when in terms of all the chaos and stuff? And the answer was love. Love is the key. It's the engine, and it's the medium. So if you can help them focus on love.
Love. Yeah. And I'm like, is it loving themselves? Loving, they're like, no, just love. Love. As
Robin Williams said.
Robin
So
Williams
speaking
said.
of somebody who checked off the planet and has come back to tell us to love.
Yeah. Hold on. Love is a lot more than what it seems. It's the frequency that heals all.
And how do we do that? How do we open ourselves up to that concept, or open your heart? How do we do that?
Love, it's everything we've heard before. Gratitude, simple things. Love the fact that you can see yourself in a mirror, and those that can't see themselves love something else. Like love the things that add up.
Whether it's the sunshine, the taste of a cappuccino, slice of pizza, music.
Love your breath. Love the fact that your brain still works. Love that you're loved from the other side, no matter what, no matter who you are loved. Why?
What'd she say?
So I said, I'm like, even the bad people, and she just
That's what everybody thought at the same time.
okay.
What did she say?
She said, well, somebody up there can see their whole life and what their purpose is. They're still loved.
They're still loved. And I think it's important to repeat. Of course, we all have met people who've done awful things. We've all seen it on television. We've seen it, blah, blah, blah. Heinous things that I know you have to go. Heinous things that people can't. That's all right. But the point is that all of their lifetimes, the arc of all their lifetimes might include learning terrible lessons, but 5 lifetimes from now, they become the doctor that saves a planet. So you have to allow and try not to judge everything that happens. Jennifer, I'm sorry we've only got a short time today, but I would appreciate it, because I think our audience has missed you, and we need to at least let them know we're still podcasting, and we're going to figure it out when you get back.
We are going to figure it out when I get back, and I will try to do. I need to, like, I make sure that to be present. I make sure that I don't have anything, but I've realized I'm like, I can still grab an hour here and there, no matter where I'm at in the world. I'm traveling a lot. I just got to get used to it, and we just have to figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for coming by. Thanks, Luana. We always appreciate yours. Everybody knows Luana.
So said I
love you. Love you. I love you. All right. Bye, Jennifer. Love you. Bye. This has been Hacking the Afterlife podcast with Jennifer Shaffer. For more information, jennifershaffer.com, martinizone.com, or richmartini.com. Hacking the Afterlife documentary is available on Gaia.com via Amazon Prime.